Hello, everybody. Welcome to the HR Roundtable. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad to have you with us to talk about identifying and cultivating leaders without breaking the bank, which is always important. It's certainly a topic I know that's near and dear to a lot of our hearts because it's an area where I think so many of us really want to do more development and may not always have the time to do it and or the expertise perhaps, but also budget is always a huge part in that. So we're very excited to have Cindy Scholler with us today, who's going to really talk with us about how we can go about doing that with a much smaller budget. Cindy's a recognized human resources leader, author, speaker, trainer, and leadership coach with more than 20 years of experience in the field. As the principal of IntegraStar HR Consulting, she provides clients in strategic direction in the areas of talent acquisition and retention, culture and engagement, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Cindy also provides leadership coaching to established and aspiring leaders, as well as professional development and training on many topics in the areas of employee relations, performance management, talent acquisition and retention, and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Cindy, we're so glad to have you with us today. Let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, PJ. I really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. And I see there's so many people on from all over. I see Columbus, Ohio in the chat. I see Dallas, Fort Worth in the chat. So welcome. And I know we only have an hour, and this is a hot topic. We all are being asked to do more with less, and I think this it's not new, and it will continue. But this topic of how do we even identify leaders, and when we do identify them, then how do we cultivate those leaders, especially when I don't have a budget, right, or have a very small budget. So today we're going to talk about some internal, first of all, we're going to talk about what a leader is. We're going to do a couple polls, and we're going to do a breakout room because I want to hear your feedback, but I am going to provide you with a bunch of internal and external resources so that when you do identify your potential leaders, you can cultivate them and not worry about the fact that you don't have thousands of dollars, right, to send them to training or to provide them with the resources that they might need. So with that, we'll get started. So we're just gonna go over, I want everyone to interact. We're gonna use the chat. You can come off mic if you'd like to. Just make sure that you mute yourself once you're done speaking. Again, poll questions. We're gonna talk about characteristics of leaders, identifying how you identify potential leaders, and then some cost-effective internal and external resources, as I said. And then we'll wrap up at the end. So just, let everybody speak, be vulnerable, come off of chat, come off of mute if you'd like to, put your thoughts in chat, give your unique perspective, because I guarantee that each person on the call will walk away with something new today that maybe they didn't think of, or maybe they didn't have in their toolbox. So if the only thing that I ask is if there's someone speaking, please wait for them to finish, put themselves on mute, and then, chime in and have fun. Learn something and have fun. So we're going to ask the first poll question that we have today. And this is a very basic question, but just would like to see how many of you on the call know how to actually identify potential leaders in your organization. And this is anonymous. We'll just wait another minute. Okay, so about 68% of you know, or 65, or kind of going back and forth, toggling back and forth with the numbers here, how to identify potential leaders. And that's great. Next question. How many of you actually have an employee or have employees that you've identified or, said, this person's really got talent. And I think, for succession planning reasons or future, right, to keep them, to retain them. Gosh, I'd love to develop them, but I'm concerned that I might lose them because I don't have money to train them or to send them somewhere to be trained. Okay, a lot of you. So that is why we're chatting today. So it's about 83-ish, 83% of you. You know you have leaders, potential leaders, but you're not quite sure what to do to keep them because you don't have a budget. Completely typical. So this is what we're going to talk about. So come off of chat or you put it in the chat. Or you can come off of mute if you want. What is a leader? Tell me what you think the characteristics that leaders possess. And I'll read
Uh,
out.
I can go ahead. I think there are things that we would automatically think of if we think of a leader. We're asked, what kind of leadership style. But in terms of, leadership development and doing succession planning, I think that's really something that's individual to the organization. So what are those competencies? And I think you have to start from there if you're going to build sort of an emerging leader or a high potential program. It's like, what does a leader look like here? And then you can use some of those elements in addition to your culture and your values and those type of tech and other types of technical skills to build a leadership program around.
Thank you, Kelly. And we'll talk a little bit at the end about building like that plan, right? And maybe we'll have another discussion at some point in the future about that. But yes, it is specific to each organization. However, there are some very general characteristics that I think we all think about, right? When we think about leaders. Lisa, you have said in the chat, inspirational, trust, right? They're self-aware and they're constantly learning. And all of that is correct. So here's just some general, very broad characteristics that if you're trying to identify potential leaders you want to look for. Are they honest? Right? Are they respectful? Do they talk over people? Do they, in meetings, or do they allow others to speak? Are they resilient or do they quit? Right, when they make a mistake, or if the team, when I say fail, I never think of failure. That word just doesn't work with me. It's opportunity. But if you make a mistake or if you don't hit the mark, do you go back, or do these people go back and say, we're going to hit it the next time? Are they accountable? Are they empathetic? Huge thing for leaders. Are they empathetic? And empathetic, people think empathetic means sympathetic. It does not. It means that you actually feel, right? You listen and you feel and you're able to identify with your employees or your colleagues. Are they self-aware? Are they creative? Do they have compassion? Are they flexible and confident? Are they positive? Now, don't get me wrong, sometimes we all get, into a place where maybe we're not so positive. And do they have the ability to think strategically? Being task oriented and being able to think strategically are two very different things. Let me just see if there are any. Charisse, another characteristic, high performers, engaged, ethical. Yes, all of these characteristics are characteristics that leaders have. So, how do we actually identify potential leaders? Most of you know, but for those of you who don't, and for those of you who do know, maybe there's some things that you will learn from your colleagues. First of all, you need to be able to distinguish between what a leader is and what a team member is. And we just touched on that a moment ago. Leaders actually motivate others to reach a goal. Team members are those collaborators who work together to meet a goal. Now, that doesn't mean a leader is not also a collaborator, but a leader is that person who, I don't know if any of you have seen, there's a drawing out there where you've got a leader, right, at the top of the hill, pulling, right, the rest of the team. Are we all rowing in the same direction to reach a common goal? So that's a little bit of the difference between what a leader and a team member are. Do these people work well with each other or with others, superiors or subordinates? Are they humble enough to ask for help? We all fall into a place where sometimes we just don't want to ask for help. But asking for help is not a sign of failure. And I say this over and over. Asking for help means, hey, maybe I need someone else's idea. Maybe I need a fresh idea or fresh perspective. So we can't be afraid to ask for help. Do they adapt well to change? As we all know, our environment professionally has changed tremendously in the past several years. So, how do your employees adapt to change? The people that you've pointed at or said, I wonder if this person could be a good leader or could step into this person's shoes when they retire. Or if this, maybe you have heard something in the air that maybe someone might be looking, to explore other opportunities. And you have identified someone as maybe being able to move into that position. Do they adapt well to change? Are they focused on tasks, initiatives, or end goals, as we just talked about with respect to leaders and team members? Are they focused on the big picture or just tasks? Do they have ambition, right? Are they happy with where they are, or do they want bigger and better for the organization and for themselves? Do they motivate their colleagues to achieve success? If someone's down, there's always a person who might be down in the group. Maybe they've made a mistake, or maybe they haven't lived up to what they think their potential is, or maybe they haven't lived up to the potential that the team thinks they should live up to. Do they motivate each other? Tap that person on the shoulder and say, hey, come on, keep your head up. Let's keep moving forward. Do they listen well? And this is a good one because listening and hearing are two different things, right? We talk about active listening. That means that you are actively receiving what the other party is saying by maybe repeating back, this is what I hear you saying. Do I understand what you're saying? Eye contact, right? Or do you just hear what people say? Does it go in one ear and out the other? Two different things. And do your potential leaders see failure or a mistake or maybe not hitting a mark, not making a deadline as an opportunity? Do you look at those mistakes and say, okay, so next time we can do this? Or you know what? We learn from this, and that's the important thing. So these are the characteristics that you want to be looking for in people that you are pointing at or may want to tap as a potential leader. Can anyone think of anything else that they might want to add? You can either come off mic or you can put it in the chat. Anything else that might not be on this list when you're thinking about potential leaders in your organizations? If not, that's okay. Create clarity. Yes, absolutely. We need that these days, right? We need clarity. Yes, they're persuasive. Yes. Getting everybody on the same page, right? Now, the one thing that I will say about that, and thank you, is it Marissa, and Lisa, is that you don't have to agree with everything your organization decides to do. But as a leader, it's our responsibility to get the team on board. And I want you to remember that because it's really important. Provide developmental opportunities. Yes, Dean, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. And are they eager to learn, right? To grow? Yes, showing vulnerability. There's another thing about leaders that I'd like to just touch on. Thank you, Melissa, on the vulnerability comment. We're not perfect. And we can't think of everything ourselves, nor can we achieve the organization's goals alone. We absolutely need different perspectives and other ways to do things. And I tell people all the time, if you have a team member who can do something more efficiently and effectively, open the door. That's fine. We all have different strengths. Any other comments before we move on? Okay. So, Cindy, we've identified these leaders. Most of us know how to identify them, know the characteristics we need to look for. But when we get there, what do we do? Because we have no budget. We've not been given money for professional development and training, coaching, you name it. What can we do that's cost effective internally and externally to build these people that we have tapped? Some people, I will tell you, have natural leadership skills, but one comment that I'd like to make here is we're not born leaders. We hear that phrase sometimes. Some people have natural leadership skills and possess those characteristics, but there are still skills to learn to be an effective leader. So, what I want to do is I want to go to breakout rooms, and there are, let's see how many people. We have about 30 people. And PJ's going to just put you in random rooms. And for the next, people always tell me we don't have enough time to chat. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes. But if your groups are finished chatting and you want to come back, that's fine. That'll give me an idea of whether or not, some people are going to stay out the entire time. Some people may come back a little early. But I want to make sure that everyone has chance to talk about what internal resources you use now or you think you might be able to use to grow your potential leaders, and what external resources you think you can tap into or do you already use that are cost effective to possibly develop those people that you have tapped as potential leaders or you have identified as potential leaders. I guarantee when we come back, I want each group to report back, but I'm also going to provide you with additional resources. The reason why we're doing this is because I want you to be able to share with your colleagues if you have ideas already. And in addition to that, I'm going to provide you with some cost-effective internal resources and external resources. So we are going to go to breakout rooms and I will see you back in 15. Okay. So tell me what your groups talked about. You can chime in. I think there were about 5 groups. And so let's start with internal resources, cost-effective internal resources that you're already using or, to share with the group.
I'll talk about mine. I don't want to steal anybody else's thunder, but my team had some really great ideas. So I don't want to say theirs, but I'll let Marissa and Edwina talk about theirs. One of the things that I talked about was one organization I worked at. It was a big healthcare system, and they had hundreds of hospitals throughout the country. We had an administrator and training program, so high potentials could for 2 years shadow a CEO while they went to training in our corporate office in Birmingham, and then they would be eligible to become a CEO. I work at a school district now. We do special assignments with teachers, and we hold their contract as the teacher. We have a long-term sub in for them for 1 to 2 years while they work with a principal and an assistant principal. So those are special assignments. Also, when I've done high potentials with, succession planning, we've had internally having those folks join executive meetings, board meetings, have mentorships, those kinds of things. So I know others had even better ideas. So I don't want to steal their thunder. I'll let them tell.
Put it on here about what is it you're envisioning for your life?
Is somebody not on mute? Hold on. Okay, thanks. Who else? Great ideas.
Hi, Cindy. I'd be happy to talk about our group. I did get permission to speak on their behalf. One of the ideas that came up, which I certainly jotted down, was they've identified newer managers where they're going to bring in internal current leaders and some external consultants to provide a boot camp, a leadership boot camp for newer managers. So everybody will be in together to develop those relationships, hopefully, learn from each other, be able to rely on each other for kind of peer assistance and feedback and so forth. So that was a great idea that one of my team members shared. There was also, and I'm sure others do this as well, ambassador or buddy system for new hires as well. I talked a little bit about an internal mentoring program, and we all kind of shared the same experience where we started off really structured and for like more formalized, and then folks were like, whoa, that's a little bit too much. We want it to be a little bit more informal and organic. So I kind of rolled with that and leaned into folks wanting the mentor and menteeship, but in a more organic, informal way. So have been working with folks that way.
Great, great feedback. What I will say, I just want to make one comment before the next group speaks, is that not everyone is a great mentor. And so you might have people in your organizations who want to be a mentor, but they're not necessarily great at it, right? So there could be an opportunity to train people how to be an effective mentor. So I just want to throw that out there because I have been in organizations where you're either assigned, you're told, right? It's you don't volunteer, you're voluntold, right? But not everyone is an effective mentor. So just keep that in mind. Next. Any other groups want to comment?
So it looks like the other team members who had really great ideas aren't going to say anything. So I'll tell you what they said. So Marissa said that they use the LinkedIn Learning Library and it's free. You can't track things and you can't print out, certificates individually and that kind of thing. But I was like, oh, I'm all over that because I use my own subscription now, and then I'll like show it on a big screen and, teach people. And then she also mentioned, and this is something that I didn't really put together with leadership development, but I guess it makes sense. So we're self-insured here, and I don't know if it's just for self-insured for health insurance, but we have IBX and we get wellness dollars back. So we get about 20,000 back a year, and we do use it for wellness, but that also includes like some financial acumen and those types of things and other leadership. So that was something else. Also, I believe it was Edwina. She had mentioned that they do a lunch, a brown bag lunch. So subject matter experts in the organization will, teach people. It might have been Marissa that said that. I'm sorry. So, there were some really great other ideas that came up, and also mentoring and things of that nature as well.
Thank you,
Thank
Kelly.
you.
One thing we did to encourage managers to participate was to tie it into our bonus program. So in order for them to teach others and be incentivized, we put in that they had to do 2 brown bags, and that gave them more of the bonus money at the end of the year. And so that turned out to be pretty impactful for us.
Thank you, Marissa. Does anyone else want to share? I want to be mindful of the time. But does anyone else want to share what their group spoke about? Okay, let's move on to external resources. Are any of you using external resources that are cost effective that you can share with your colleagues?
We have a community college it's a huge community college that's very close to us. So Again, I work for a school district, so we're actually using that for our students as well. For like if they're taking AP classes, they can take some college classes half the day. But for our employees as well, so we were putting together a couple of years ago some DE&I, and they had some kind of off the shelf kind of stuff. But then what we did was we customized it. Our school is called Neshaminy, so we Neshaminize it. And so we've had them put that together. People love to get that certificate, and they come in and they do those kinds of things. And so we have used that, and also so we're part of our school districts in Pennsylvania anyway, are part of these IUs or intermediate units, which we all kind of pay into. So they serve as almost like a corporate office, but we don't really report to them. But they offer a lot of, so for if you're a principal, they have principal meetings once a month. HR directors have HR meetings once a month. And then we all share best practices. We do salary surveys and, all sorts of things like that. So that, and our superintendents even do that. So that's been it's part of the cost that we already have. It's just something that they offer within that cost.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Anyone else on the call using external resources that they might want to share with the group? Okay, all great ideas, and all cost effective. So you can, in fact, cultivate leaders utilizing inexpensive and cost-effective internal and external resources. Now, these are going to be just a few. I have a chart that I'm going to also provide you with in a moment. But again, peer-to-peer learning. You kind of touched on that, but peer-to-peer learning is when you have individuals on the same level sharing information, right? Again, we don't have all the ideas, and we need to open ourselves, right, to other people's perspectives. We all learn something from our colleagues every single day. So peer-to-peer learning, that on-the-job development, I think it was Marissa who mentioned, or someone mentioned tying it to a bonus, right? And making people, requiring that people do 2 brown bag, presentations or whatever it is. For not only does that, people like money, right? But it also gives them an opportunity to develop presentation skills, right? And it doesn't have to be a half-day seminar, right? It's getting up in front of people, being assertive, right? And sharing your knowledge, the subject matter experts sharing their knowledge with their colleagues. Lunch and learn sessions, which is what I call these, right? They're snippets. They're an hour long. We could talk about this stuff all day, but you generally can't, it's very hard to get people away for longer than an hour, right? Maybe an hour and 15 minutes, depending on the topic. And it's also hard to get people to retain information, particularly when they're on a virtual call. And we were talking about this, PJ and I were talking about this when you all were in breakout rooms, to keep people's attention and to keep people engaged for 2 hours, 3 hours, unless you have multiple activities, team building, activities, and other interactive events. So these lunch and learn sessions, these hour-long sessions, it could even be a micro learning session of 30 minutes, right? Hey, here's some tips and tricks, but led by your potential leaders and other employees. And then someone also mentioned like a shadowing program, and it's a little different than job rotation, right? But if you have an opportunity for employees to rotate, right? So that they, maybe they only have expertise in one area. Let's use human resources as an example. You only have, your benefits person only has benefits experience, but you think they'd be great as a generalist, or maybe in the area of professional development, or whatever else, your talent management or HR department, if you're a larger than one department. You want to give them additional resources, right? And you want them to grow and you want to keep them because you're cultivating them to be a leader. You maybe have an opportunity for job rotation or shadowing or mentoring or buddies, right? The best buddies, I will tell you, are those people who have your institutional knowledge in your organizations. Those people have information to hand down to others that you will never have if they've been with your organization for 15 or 20 years. So when you're buddying people up, and not everybody's a good buddy either, just as not everyone is a great mentor. But think about that. Your people who have institutional knowledge, who will roll off and who will retire someday. You want them to do an information download to everyone so that people know the history, right, of the organization and how things were done. So some external cost-effective resources that I'd like to share. And someone also put in the chat, Azra, thank you. One can access LinkedIn Learning for free through the local library. Thank you very much for that tip. So some cost-effective external resources, online platforms, and I'm going to show you a chart in a minute. There are many more on the chart. Coursera, LinkedIn Learning. If you do not have a LinkedIn profile, please create one. Our colleagues, all of us, we share so much information on LinkedIn, more than you could ever imagine. Those courses, and there are courses out there that are other than LinkedIn Learning. There are free webinars. We're going to get to that in a moment. Community partnerships with local colleges, right? I think Kelly said something about, community college courses. Leadership organizations, look into your leadership organizations out there that are HR related. Google or leadership, webinars, seminars. Thank you, Melissa. And then your webinars and your podcasts. So we're going to move quickly to the next slide here. And I have compiled a list for all of you. I believe you're going to have you either have these slides already or you will get them. But these resources are out there. Let me tell you about the free online platforms we just talked about. Coursera, edX. And edX is a nonprofit platform that offers free online courses from top universities and institutions. It provides courses in subjects and allows users to earn certificates or degrees, and people do love those certificates. Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, HubSpot Academy, all free online platforms. Podcasts, audiobooks. Everyone knows, probably everyone on the call knows who Simon Sinek is. Brene Brown. Dale Carnegie Business Podcast. They have free ebooks. Maxwell. John Maxwell has leadership podcasts, free. And then NGA's Life Collection on YouTube. Check out YouTube. I actually looked on YouTube when I saw this. Webinars and virtual events offered by Eventbrite. Check out SHRM. They offer free webinars all the time. I just sat on one the other day on compliance, Title VII. The local Chamber of Commerce in your areas. Check out that. HR.com. I've done a webinar on HR.com. All of you can do webinars on HR.com also and contribute. And of course, YouTube, we just talked about. The last thing that I want to talk about is how important it is to stay updated and read. And so for your potential leaders, the Harvard Business Review, great articles on leadership concepts. The Center for Creative Leadership. If you're on LinkedIn, you see their posts all the time. Great ideas, great posts. Mind Tools, Forbes, absolutely excellent articles on Forbes. And the Leadership Quarterly. Now, these are just a handful of resources. But I share these with you and all of the information that you all shared to remind you all that, yes, it's difficult to cultivate leaders, right? Or retain people and grow leaders when we think we can't do it, right? Without money. It's not true. We can develop leaders on a shoestring budget. Some things you do need a little bit for money for, maybe there's a $99 webinar or, $149 webinar. I'm not going to say that everything is free. But as someone said in the beginning, you have to develop a plan, right? It's industry and organization specific. What do you need? Is there a succession plan in place? Do you have, two top leaders retiring in the next 5 years? What is the plan? Do you need, are you up against the wall to identify leaders? Or are you just trying to identify potential leaders so that you can groom them to grow, whether it's in your organization or to grow them up and out? Is there a timeline? And I think Kelly mentioned this in the beginning. What are the actual characteristics and qualities needed, right? If you have a specific position or positions to fill in the next 3 to 5 years. And then think through, and you have this great chart now. What resources can you use to grow people? And you can build a plan using some of these resources and the resources that your colleagues have already shared. And also remember, for those of you, most of you knew the characteristics or how to identify future leaders. Some of you did not. Use that slide as a checklist, right? When you're thinking through, I wonder if this person might be a good leader. But also use this chart. And if you want to put together a quote leadership training, or boot camp, right? Use some of these resources to begin to develop those people on a budget that's less than $1 million, right? There are a lot of resources out there internally and externally. So I think we're almost out of time here. But what I'd like to say is that we all have leaders in our organizations, and retention is critical. And so use these resources to grow people.
Cindy, we
And
did have
don't,
a question, and I apologize
yes,
for interrupting you. Lisa was asking about those leadership attributes that you were just talking about. If there were some specific research or articles that you used to develop that list and kind of where those came from.
yeah, I mean, just it's from overtime. And I've been in the industry, I've been an HR practitioner for 25 years, and they're just some of those characteristics I've developed over time. Some of those characteristics, I will tell you, come from, HR.com webinars, come from, Forbes, my reading, SHRM magazine, it's online now. All of these places out there that I identified here. I always use those sources for my research. There are definitely, things that come up that I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. But use these resources on the chart. Any other questions out there? Okay. Well, I want to say thank you for your time and attention. I hope everyone took something away from this today. Again, my name is Cindy Schuler. Please feel free to link in with me. I consult on a full-time basis now. Lots of professional development and training, soft skills, technical skills, leadership coaching. I pretty much do it all. But if you just want to chat or bounce some ideas off of me, I'm here for that too. So thank you again. I appreciate all of you. And thank you, PJ.
Absolutely. Cindy, thank you so much. Such great information, wonderful resources, which we certainly appreciate, and loved hearing from everybody else what they've been doing as well. So thank you so much for such a great presentation. We certainly appreciate all of you joining us and really hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Thanks so much, everybody.